Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, where it's all about creating the life you want, the business you want, and making a real difference. Join us in unlocking the code to true success. And now your host, Tony Caliendo, Master Coach with Rethink Coaching.
Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, episode number 148. I'm Tony Caliendo, author of Less Over More and executive coach here at Rethink Coaching. As always, I want to welcome you to the podcast and thank you for sharing your time with me. Time truly is our greatest asset, and the fact that you're willing to continually share your time with me truly does mean a great deal. Today, I want to talk to you about the power of the pause. I've experienced this myself. We've been conditioned to believe that progress comes from moving faster, doing more. But when I really sit back and assess my life, my business, my coaching, I realized that when I did intentional pauses is when I typically had the greatest breakthroughs in my life and in my business. And it wasn't really until maybe a little bit over a decade ago that I had this realization. And it was because I felt like my life was just going by in a flash. And I remember my sweet mom always telling me, as you get older, time's going to go by really quick. And she wasn't wrong. And I think part of the reason we experience that as human beings is we fill our time and space to the brim. We don't take time to slow down. We don't take time for an intentional pause. We do not take time to just take a breath. And a good friend of mine, Jen, she and I were talking one year, it's about 2 or 3 years ago, and she and I joked with each other that we were going to make time slow down. And we brainstormed all these different ways that we were going to do this. We were going to drive slower. We were going to stop more often, enjoy the scenery, not get upset with road rage, all of the different things. And while it was funny at first, it created an awareness that really time can slow a bit or feel like it has. We don't have control over the clock if we take a moment to pause. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. The number one thing about taking a pause is that it creates clarity. I know for myself, I make my worst decisions when I am reacting. And a lot of times I'll be reacting because I've got to hurry up, make that decision and move on to the next one. And so I view it as I got to hurry and make a quick decision and react versus pause to really assess and analyze, what do I want this decision to be? Noise will distract you and noise will disguise itself as urgency. So again, going back to my friend Jen, we were chatting, we have all this noise constantly around us. The radio's on in the car. The cell phone calls are coming in, the text messages. We're very connected to technology while we drive. And that push for moving forward and not even having a moment to pause while you drive will create noise. And that noise will disguise itself as urgency because you're wanting to quickly move out of that and get that decision made and move forward. What I know to be true is you can't evaluate your life while you're sprinting through it. You just can't because you're so focused on where you're headed. You're not paying attention to the opportunities. You're not paying attention that there's a lot of noise. You're not paying attention that if you just took a deep breath, things could be very, very different for you. Sometimes the answer is not hidden. A lot of times the answer is right in front of us and it's buried under activity because we're so distracted with doing something, what we're going to do next, what the next project is, what the next phone call is, what the next marketing piece is, what the next, whatever it is in your life, what is that next situation? So question for you, what have you been too busy to notice? And I want you to really think about that. What have you been too busy to notice? Because this is going to help you as we move forward and create the pause. So you may be answering me right now being like, I don't know. I have no idea what I've been too busy to notice. I'm going to walk you through that today. And hopefully by the end of this episode, you'll have some clarity on what you're doing that is lending to the noise versus taking a pause to assess, learn, and grow. A pause, the number two thing is a pause helps you identify your wrong more. This is one of the premises in my book, Less Over More, is that we do things and less over more isn't about not doing something. It's about putting your attention, energy, and effort into the right more. And I know this happens. People are busy. And I've met so many people in different industries. It doesn't matter which one it is, if they're a C-suite, an executive leader, if they're an entrepreneur. Some people really like to hang their hat on the label of busyness. Oh my gosh, I'm just so busy. Today was just such a busy day. And we're wearing that title and that badge as a badge of honor. And that will become our identity. So again, if we're not pausing and we're staying in the busyness, we're robbing ourselves of opportunity to figure out what's really going on. Success can slowly fill our lives with commitments we never intended to keep. Think about that. We make a ton of commitments based upon where we are in our business and our life. And some of them we just say yes to because we're busy. We don't really have time to think about it. Remember, we make our worst decisions when we're reacting. So you make this commitment out of a reaction and you never had an intention of keeping it. I'd done this myself, and I laugh when I was thinking about what I was going to talk about today. Is I've done this several times, and I've stopped because I've become aware of it. But I can tell you several times I made a commitment to somebody, and on the back of my head, I thought that is never going to happen. It's just not. It's never going to happen. But I don't want to say no, and I'm reacting, and I'm giving them a quick answer. I'm not taking a pause to think about why this would not be a great idea or why this should not be a commitment that I'm about to make that is not going to serve me, and it's just going to create noise. Also, ask yourself, what are you doing simply because you've always done it? We fall into that habit a lot of we just do things out of habit. We don't really pause long enough to assess, is it working? Do I need to tweak it? Do I need to replace it? Do I need to stop doing it altogether? We also don't stop long enough to figure out what's draining us. Like what activities or what are you doing that when you're done doing has absolutely zapped you? And I'm not saying that work is going to be all sunshine and rainbows and easy. However, there are certain activities that are draining you, and we need to pause long enough to think about, can I fix that? Can I change it? What do I need to do differently that activity isn't draining me? And again, is it an activity that I'm doing out of habit, or is it something that I need to keep doing? And I think the most important question to ask yourself when you're in this phase of identifying your wrong more is, what is no longer aligned? This is one of those really powerful questions I will ask myself often. And I think I've shared with you on the journey to writing the book, Less Over More. I had to take several pauses because I have a lot of other things going on in other businesses. And when I started aligning what was no longer in alignment, so when I started identifying that, what was no longer in alignment, it was freeing for me. It almost gave me permission to release that and to let it go, which created space for really great things to show up. So what's no longer in alignment for you? Less over more is not about doing less for the sake of less. It's about removing the wrong more. When you remove the things that are draining you, when you remove the things that you're doing out of habit, and you remove the things that are no longer aligned, you're creating the space for the right more to show up by getting rid of the wrong more. Now, caveat, there are activities that we have to do in our business, lead generation, lead follow-up, sales, speaking engagements, whatever it is. And we need to do those to move our business forward. And if it's draining you, I would ask you to, before you eliminate it, to assess what could you do differently that maybe wouldn't drain you. So if giving a presentation is draining you, take a look at it. And what might be draining you is the creation of a PowerPoint, the creation of a handout, the creation of what you're going to share. Lean into, who can I leverage? Who can I have help me with this? Take that piece off and you may no longer feel drained because you're focusing on the things in that activity that inspire you. So take a peek at what's draining you and make sure you ask yourself the right question. Here's one that I really love, the next two. A pause interrupts automatic thinking. I've shared this statistic with you before. We have 60,000 thoughts a day, 80% are negative, but here's the most important thing. 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. They're the same thought that we have day after day after day. If you really get honest with yourself and take a step back and think about all the thoughts that you're having today, the majority of those you had yesterday and the day before and the week before and the month before. Because if we're having 60,000 thoughts a day, 80% being negative, your brain isn't always creating new thoughts. It's just pulling the old thoughts forward. It's letting you experience those same thoughts over and over and over because it conserves energy. It makes it easier for your brain, and your brain is always looking for a way to conserve energy. So it may just create more repetitive thoughts than you're aware of. You repeat yesterday's thoughts a lot. I do a thought exercise every morning with the thought flow model that I've shared with you: thoughts, feelings, actions, results. And when I do a brain dump of all of my thoughts in the morning for 10 minutes, I just sit with a blank piece of paper in my journal and I single line out my thoughts. It's still shocking to me, with all of the work that I've done, that I'm having 80% of my thoughts negative. And what surprises me sometimes even more is that I'm having the same negative thought that I thought I corrected a month ago, 6 months ago, yet it creeps back in because your brain is masterful at pulling old thoughts forward because it's easy. A pause will allow you to really question those thoughts. So every morning, I get to question those thoughts I'm having and reframe them. It doesn't go away when I reframe it. I'm just very aware when it happens, and that honestly, I can control how much I allow it to seep into my daily activity. A pause happens between the event and a thought. So something happens, it creates the thought, and then we're off and running. Thoughts, feelings, actions, results. Really, really important. If we take a pause and acknowledge the external circumstance and the thought, that's where magic can happen. And if we pause there, it prevents you from just going down the path of that automatic thinking. It could be catastrophic. It could be everything that could go wrong. It can be a habit that you're holding on to, again, because the brain views it as it's simple. Just have that same dang thought again. I don't have to give much energy to it, and you'll run with it. So that's my job, and it really can hold you back. Number 4, what I love about a pause is a pause gives you back your choices. When you react, it's automatic, right? And when we respond, sometimes it's not intentional. We just respond out of habit. And we often think we don't have options because we've never slowed down enough to really see them. I think about this pause is really, really powerful. Viktor Frankl, in Man's Search for Meaning, which is a phenomenal book, has a statement that he makes that is really, for me, summarizes why we need to take a pause. And Victor says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our happiness. If you think about what we've talked about, right, between stimulus and response, between a event happening and a thought, that's what's going on. Stimulus, something happens, triggers a thought. When we react and we don't slow down and we make a thought from a reaction, right, we're constantly reacting, we are robbing ourselves of the freedom and power to choose our response, which you could do if you took a pause. In your response lies your growth or your happiness. So if you're making decisions on the fly, you're really putting your growth and happiness at risk. It's really that simple. I love his statement about this, that there is an opportunity for you between stimulus and your response. That is power, and that is where the power of the pause can come in. So perhaps as you're responding to a question or somebody is making an ask of you, before you say yes, pause. They've made an ask, that's an external stimulus, and your response is coming. But in between, there's a gap. And that space allows you to make a different decision. Maybe you pause before you make a purchase. I know some of us will make emotional decisions about a purchase, and we may just make that purchase without stopping ourselves, pausing, and letting it sit for a minute. There's really nothing wrong with saying, hey, I'm going to think about this for the next 24 hours, and then I'll make my decision tomorrow. And let yourself live as if you made the decision and see if you're okay with it the next day. Before you change a job, before you do something different, before you end a relationship, before you launch a new project, these are all great times to pause between stimulus and response, which can create your joy and your progress moving forward. Number 5 myth is that a pause is failing, and a pause is not failing or falling behind. It's not. It's strategic. This is why many of our big achievers struggle. And it's because they believe if they slow down, somebody else might pass you by. If you miss this opportunity, you'll never get it again. I know in sales, this is a big one, that a pause is viewed as falling behind. And it's not. It can be if you take a pause for an excuse. However, if you're strategic about your pause, it can really help you with moving forward faster. And that's what I think people struggle with, is that I'm not going to fall behind if I have a strategic pause. In fact, it may help me accelerate to what I really want to do quicker and in a way that I might actually enjoy it. And that to me is a huge gift. So if you hold that belief that if I slow down, my competition is going to blow past me, or if I slow down, my competition is going to snag the opportunity that was meant for me, this may cause you to think that pausing is a negative thing. I'm going to invite you to think about it differently, that pausing is a strategy, and pausing is a powerful strategy. Think about athletes. They rest and recover. I know working out, I don't work the same muscle group day after day after day. You pause and give that muscle group time to recover. Musicians rest. They don't play 24/7. They take a moment to rest. Farmers let fields recover. So they may not plant a crop in that field again the next year. They may let it heal and recover. It's an intentional pause. Businesses, if you retreat back to your plan, that is a great intentional pause to get yourself back on track. Let's go back and see what the plan said and make sure that I'm actually following it. Great leaders pause. Nature pauses. Think about the time in between seasons. I think about summer to fall to winter the most about a pause. The nature is really, really intentional about creating the pause. The flowers stop blooming. It takes a pause. The grass goes dormant. It takes a pause. Then after the pause is over, we have spring and things come back to life. And it can come back to life more vibrant, more colorful, more impactful. And to me, that is, we need to learn from nature, because there's a lot of lessons learned there in the power of the pause. If you're resisting it, just ask yourself why you shouldn't, because it's a story you've created that's making you feel really good. It's that busyness factor, that because you're busy, you feel productive and that you're moving forward. And why would I take a pause? Or you may have the thought that this pause is going to demolish my momentum. If I pause, I'm never going to get back to where I was. Now, here, I do agree. If we take a step out of production and then we go to start over, we're not starting over where we left off. We're not. So it may take a moment to rebuild or reconnect where you left off, but this is what's really cool. If you do pause effectively and you pause in a way that is strategic, when you re-engage, your momentum can be completely different. It can be a more powerful momentum than the momentum you were stuck in. So don't view it as a bad thing. I know for myself, one of the times I took the biggest pause is when I was leaving the hotel industry and going into real estate. I had a ton of vacation time built up that I wasn't able to take, just because the hospitality industry is very busy and taking time off is challenging. And I think I had 2.5 months of vacation time. And I remember taking it. And the first week I was super busy doing everything I wasn't able to do while I was working full time. And then the second week I found myself busying myself doing stuff because I didn't want to be in the quiet of the pause. And then by week 3 or 4, I was really forced to take a pause because all of my friends were working except for me. So I didn't have people to go play and do stuff with during the day. It really forced me to take what I consider my first big pause in life and business. And it was one of the best pauses because I was leaving everything I knew behind in the hospitality world and stepping into real estate. And that required me to reframe and to get my thoughts in order and to get really clear on what my path to success looked like. And that pause is most likely what allowed me to hit the ground running in a way that I probably wouldn't have had I left the hotel industry on a Friday and went to be a real estate agent on Monday. Pause was really, really critical. It allowed me to do all of the things that we're talking about. The pause, the number 6 thing, is the pause really does create the space for the right more. And I really want to stress that that's really what we talk about in the book, Less Over More, is there's a right more and there's a wrong more. And there is a way that we want to eliminate the wrong that creates space for the right. And every yes that you say, so let's just say you're saying yes, which is saying yes to doing something, is occupying space. And if you are pausing or analyzing or assessing or getting out of busyness, you may realize that that yes is coming at a huge cost to you. When I say yes to one thing, I'm saying no to another. It's typically how it works. We can say yes a lot and not have to say no. However, at some point when we're saying yes and we're super busy, something's got to give. And so take a moment and think that the pause can create the space for the right more, because it allows you to assess your yeses. When we remove unnecessary commitments, so things that you have said yes to in the past that have just become part of your daily activities, when we remove those and realize that a lot of those are just distractions that are stealing energy, it creates the space for better ideas, healthier relationships, creativity, opportunity, and peace. I think for me, two of those that are really, really important: healthier relationship. Clearly, I want healthy relationships with my husband and my friends and my family. But the thing that I love is the peace that comes with it. And through that peace and joy allows me to be really creative, which really helped me with the book, Less Over More. You don't necessarily create these things. You get to experience them through a pause. So you get to experience better ideas, healthier relationship, creativity, opportunity, and peace. You will make room for them when you assess the things that you've said yes to that are actually distractions, and you remove those unnecessary commitments. The magic happens. It's when we get to go behind the magic curtain and our life and business get to change. So I want to give you a challenge this week. I want you to take a 20-minute pause. No phone, no music, no internet, no podcast. It's okay if you put my podcast on pause for a minute. Just a notebook. And I want you to ask yourself these questions. So here's what I would encourage you to do. Get the notebook and write these questions down so you can be focused on it. And just go through the questions. What feels heavy? What is energizing me? What is draining me? What have I been avoiding? We talked about this on the last podcast. What deserves more of me? Where are my talents not being used to their fullest? And what deserves less? What's a distraction? What is pulling me out of my zone of creativity, or my zone of productivity, or my zone of joy and peace? What's pulling me out? What deserves less? Sometimes your next breakthrough is not a strategy. It's a pause long enough to hear yourself think. There's so many good things happening up in our mind that we push aside and push down because we allow old patterns, old thoughts to be driving the bus. And we don't take a moment to pause to allow those new thoughts to come to our mind, or to come out of us and into a great new project. The idea of the pause became one of my founding principles really in my business. And it's part of the book, Less Over More, because throughout the book, I talk about how you can simplify your life. And it's not about becoming less ambitious. It's actually about achieving more on a path of the right more, and doing it in a way that you're in alignment, that you're enjoying, you have peace and joy. And I don't know about you, but in a world that is full of joy thieves and energy vampires, having and creating an intentional space to manage what's going on, to eliminate the wrong more, to welcome in the right more, is something that I love being able to do, and was really part of the passion of writing the book, Less Over More. If you'd like to purchase the book, probably the easiest thing is just to go where you normally purchase books. That can be Amazon, it can be Barnes & Noble, it can be Simon & Schuster, it can be Target. Wherever you buy a book, it is available. And I would just encourage you to buy two. And I'm not saying that from a sales pitch. I believe so strongly in the message in this book that I'm asking for my listeners, my friends, my peers to share a book with someone they know, love, and care about. Because my goal is for us to change how the world defines success, so we can get out of this busyness, so we can get out of this need to push through, so that we can give ourselves permission to take a pause. So Less Over More, it's available right now for pre-sale, and it will be physically out on October 25th of 26. So it's not that far away, less than 8 weeks at this point. You can have it in your hands. I'd encourage you, again, to order more than one so that you can share it. If you lead a team or you lead an organization, you might want to order one for everybody on your team so everybody understands the power of Less Over More. All right, team, thanks so much. We'll talk to you next week. Make it a good one. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you must come check out the Mindset Architect Group Coaching Program. It's our monthly program where we explore the power of your mindset, help you identify what you truly want in business and life, and then help you reach those goals. Come check us out at rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. That's rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. We'll see you there.